I wanna deploy a particular application. This application of mine runs inside Amazon ECS cluster. So let me just show you where all of that resides. I'm gonna quickly go to ECS this site and also go to the dev tools. Let's start with code commit. This is the first one there. So this is my cluster. I have an Amazon ECS cluster or Elastic Container Service where I'm running containers in. And in this cluster, I have some couple of services. So I have two services. So for now, let's just deal with the first service, which is demo one service. So this service is running, and of course it's powered by the ECS cluster. And under the infrastructure, you'll notice here, there's just a single EC2 instance, which is that one there, running and powering up my cluster. And my services are actually running on that particular EC2 instance. The reason you want to use a service is to actually maintain the desired count, so how many tasks you want to run all the time. By the way, when we say a task, we mean one or more containers grouped together as a single task. We are going to talk about this in more detail, especially on the container module tomorrow. So this the first service I'm running here, demo one, and in front there is also a load balancer as well. So here is a load balancer of mine with some target groups, and it's listening on port 80. Let me see if I can actually view that load balancer directly within Amazon EC2 service. So this is a demo one load balancer, and this is the DNS name of it. Let me see if that application is still running. So that is the application, and it just says running containers on Amazon ECS. This is a demo using containers on AWS. So that's the application. It's fronted with a load balancer and is running containers inside an Amazon ECS cluster, as you can see here. So that is the demo service, and I only have one task which is running there. So that is a single task. In the task, I only have one container, and the image of that container is actually stored inside Amazon ECR. I actually need to build this image from scratch and then store it inside ECR and then update my ECS service if, of course, I need to update it. And that is exactly what we're going to try and do in an automated way using a CI/CD pipeline. So let me do this then. Let me see if I can just close these other items. What I want to do is I want to show you where it all begins. So I have a code repository, which is AWS CodeCommit. In here, I have this demo one application of mine. And within that application or the repository, I just have some couple of files. I have index.html, which is actually displaying this text that running containers on Amazon ECS. And then I have the Docker file, which is going to be used for building a new container image, like in terms of what does the container image look like. We need to include this index file on the container image, so on and so forth, and expose port 80. But more importantly, I also have the build spec.yml file directly on the root, which is used by the AWS Code Build service to build a new container image and store it into ECR. And of course, I do have the building service as well directly here. So these are my build project, if I can just open them. So within the build project, I have particularly this one for building the project for my demo one application. So that is the build project there. It's actually the one that is doing the build, following the instructions that are inside the build spec.yml file. Of course, I do have the history on the couple of runs that I've done before for this one. So that's just a building and producing the artifact and also populating CloudWatch logs in case there are any logs. Of course, there are always logs. And then I have the pipeline. So the pipeline here that I have, it then allows me to listen at the source changes inside AWS Code Commit. If I get changes, I then instruct Code Build service to produce a new container image, and that container image is going to be stored into Amazon ECR. What's fascinating about this pipeline for demo one is that the AWS CodePipeline service doesn't just look at the source and consult the building service, which is code deploy, it also can talk directly into the Amazon ECS service to deploy a new version of your task definition, which is a very interesting one, especially if you are doing your normal rolling update or linear deployment inside ECS. You do not require to have AWS Code Deploy service. AWS CodePipeline can do all of the work because it is a rolling update, and that's what it actually does. So what I've just done is I have cloned this repo and put it directly into my Cloud9. So that is my repo there. As you can see, I have the index.html, says running containers Amazon ECS, and this is a demo using containers with a single exclamation, and this is exactly what you see this side. And I have a Docker file which allows me to use the publicly available Nginx container image as a base using the from command. Then I copy this index.html file into the Docker image, but into that particular HTML directory. Once I've done that, this container image is ready. It then gets sent into Amazon ECR for usage later on. I have the build spec.yml file here. The build spec.yml file is the one that actually does the build using the Docker file. All the instructions on how to actually log in into ECR and how to do the actual build using the Docker build command and tag it accordingly. And then lastly, we want to do the Docker push of those images we have built and we have tagged as well. It further also produces a new image definition files that are going to be used by AWS CodePipeline to then modify the ECS service with a new task definition that is pointing to the new container image. Very interesting, long process. Let's try and do an update and see what's going to happen. So let me update here. Let's say here maybe we want to change these exclamations. Let's say maybe we want to add more of it. So let's add more exclamations on that. And then once that is done, I'm going to Command S to save it. On the left hand side under the code repositories, I see there's a changes now on the index.html under the demo1 app. I'm going to stage all of these changes, and then I'm going to say added more exclamation. This is just a comment. Then I'm going to say command enter to then commit that. But of course I haven't pushed it. So now I'm going to click there and say push this into a code repository. Right? It then goes on to update Git and then push that accordingly to the code repository, which is one right here. That push actually causes the pipeline to start running. So if you go back to the pipeline here, so for our demo one, we expect to see now the AWS code commit has just done something. This pipeline is now busy working and it's in progress and looking at the code repository because something just changed there. As soon as this is done, looking at those changes, is then going to continue to call the AWS code build service. As you can see here, it even got the comment as well, added more exclamations, which is exactly what we said in our comment. Right now, it's busy doing the build to produce a new container image following the instructions on the build spec.yml file. It follows those instructions very close and then does all of the building. So it's pulling the container image, does the building, and even copies the index.html to the correct place. And then it's done with the building stage. Then it pushes this container image now into Amazon ECR using a Docker push command for the latest image there. Does all of that until, of course, it is done. So now we have a new container image inside Amazon ECR. By the way, I didn't show you ECR. ECR is our container registry. We're going to talk about this in more details tomorrow on our container module. So ECR is where we store container images. So for our demo one, we do have a private registry there. We do have this demo one app where we have these container images, and we just pushed one now exactly today, and that's what's just happened now. We now have a new latest container image. Of course, the pipeline doesn't stop there. It then continues now to talk directly into Amazon ECS to deploy the new container image as a task definition into the ECS service. So if you go under ECS and you look directly under the the demo 1 service, under deployments, you're gonna see that there is some deployments happening there right now. They're coming through. We have some tasks that are being requested, either the 0, so on and so forth. So it's just busy deploying into Amazon ECS directly from the AWS CodePipeline service, which is very, very interesting. If you are doing the normal rolling update inside ECS, the CodePipeline service can just do that for you. And of course, during the deployment, depending on how many tasks you want running at a minimum and at a maximum, you can actually avoid downtime by making sure that your application is still up and running while you are actually deploying. So what we're expecting to see is now you can see the application is completely changed, and all of that happened in an automated way, and just by changing the file and committing it into a code repository. So that's what we mean by a CI/CD pipeline. You can modify your applications in an automated way via the pipeline, and now we have more exclamations as part of our application. Cool. So that's what I wanted to show you on that particular section.